Ugh. Oh. 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 It's Monday. Might be Wednesday, but it's a Monday. So, today we are going back to programming Legends of Terrestria a bit, and figuring out where the hell we left off. Because I do remember what I was doing. Unfortunately, it's like a really, really annoying, complicated thing. That might need a bunch of work. So that's gonna be fun to get back to. That's the first thing. Basically, we need to have like a a scene for combat, right? The combat can't take place in the in the general area where you know, in the world area rather. We need a little space for that. Now the issue is I can't just create that because the rendering engine works in a very specific way where it renders and handles certain things in a certain way. Um I think we need to write a separate function inside of the renderer. I don't really like that, but I think we have to do that. Basically, the world is made up out of a three-dimensional array, or a matrix. You know? Close enough. This is what the game world looks like. And then inside of this, we have a bunch of cubes, right? Don't know why I made them so granular. Bunch of cubes in here. Right? And basically, I need to have another cube. There needs to be another cube like over here that's like this big. Where we contain the combat sequence. Right? And so there, can then put the characters into this cube temporarily. That way, if I put like a little sphere at the bottom here that they're fighting on, the guys are standing on that sphere like this. we can then cast shadows and stuff on that thing inside here. Because otherwise, right now, I just made the sphere appear like at the top here. Like, just so it's above everything. But that means that it casts a shadow down on the background. And on top of that, everything else will also cast shadows. So you get a little circle down here somewhere, and or like up against the wall or some bullshit. Hello. Yep. Web dev isn't entirely done, but it's like this close. I have to go through like permissions and stuff on Vercel to make sure that all the Postgres and whatever the fuck that I don't even know what it is are more or less correct. Because I found some like testing settings that were put in that like made you able to read everyone's profiles and stuff like that. So I'm trying to catch as much of that kind of stuff as I can. But yeah, so we have to create a separate matrix here. But the issue with that is that it basically means I need to go through my code and like rewrite all of the shader to have branching, to be able to split its rendering between either this or this. And that's what I've been dreading, because I feel like it's a bad... I feel like it's bad. I feel like it's a bad programming direction, but I also feel like it has to be done. But it's also like my shader isn't actually like 100% ideal. There are definitely things that could be done in better ways. Because I've basically made my own shader system, right? So now I pretty much have to like handle shaders inside the shader. Right. And that's what's actually a little bit annoying and a little bit worrisome. Because like the way you would do shaders normally is that you make a shader and you apply it to an object or to a material or whatever. And that way you can hijack the rendering step of that object and then it renders, right? So if I wanted to have like post-processing stuff on anything, it might be a little tricky, but I think it wouldn't be that bad, actually. Because the way it works, right, is that every character is rendered, before the rendering step, every character is rendered into a buffer. And then there's like an index assigned and stuff like that. And then when we're writing shadows and stuff, we're just reading from like that to see if we're colliding. So in that step, post-processing could be added to the object. Like, let's say I want like a distortion shader. I could, in that step, create like a shader step that distorts the sprite and renders it to the pipeline, or to the buffer. Kind of. It's still a little tricky, because I think the buffer has to be the same size throughout, right? Like, that's how buffers work. Each buffer step has to have the same stride, which means that each entry needs to have the same amount of bytes and bits, which means that if you want to have like a buffer of images, every single image needs to be the same size, which means that if you increase the size of one image, then every image needs to be bigger. Which is a little rough. But I don't know if you can really do it in any other way. Other than like... No, what you could do is you could use the same system, but you could bake everything into sprite sheets. But that becomes even more complicated, because now you need to store the rect as well. But that's doable. That's actually doable. I think that might be smarter in the long run. But it would mean doing sprite packaging on demand every frame. But it wouldn't have to be optimized. You could just like try to find space and just slap it in somewhere. But I think it would be bad. I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm just thinking. It's not really pertinent to what we're doing right now, though. But what I'm doing now, last thing, is... I actually don't know what I was doing right here. Handle light source. Yeah, we were doing something with the light. I think I was converting the light to work... Oh yeah, I think I remember. Basically, before, light was... It was all split into areas. So you had like one light area like this. You had one light area like this. Over here. You had one over here. And they all occupied a certain amount of tiles, right? So what I was doing before was that light could only occupy 4 areas. So if the light was like over here, it would occupy all these 4. But if the light was down here, it would occupy these 4. And this is stupid. While in reality, what should happen is that if the light is here, we should check its size, and if it's this big, then it occupies this, 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 and this. And if it's this big, then it occupies all of these. That's how it should work. Now the question is, where in the middle of this did I leave off? I... And on top of that, we are also in the middle of, I think, basically deleting one of my systems here in the shader. And I think we should delete the shadow system. I don't know why I have a shadow cast exactly. Because the shadow casting is just light casting. Right? Like, that's how that should be. A failed light cast is a shadow. So, I don't know why I have two systems. Should we just do this? That's it? One error from commenting out the shadow cast? Sure. I guess. Good coding, I suppose. But that's way less than I would imagine. I thought I had like 10 places I was shadow casting, but I guess not. But that's good. I actually think it's kind of wrong, but... Where do we have light cast then? Light cast isn't... Oh no, light cast is called at the end of shadow cast. Or was it? Or did I already, like... Am I dealing with this? Because right now, Lightcast isn't called... Yeah, no, here it is. Lightcast is there. So... Really, what we need... is to replace Shadowcast with Lightcast. But I think... it might not be that simple. Oh my god. Working with Visual Studio instead of VS Code, oh my god. It's so much better. Now, the way light should work, because I've been a little bit worried about like how to do that, but the way I've been approaching it before is that instead of actually adding light when there's light, though I will do it a little bit, because I think it needs to... The sprites need to be characterized by the light a bit. But basically, there's going to be like a base darkness color, and everything is going to be colored by that color, right? We're going to multiply it by darkness, and when light falls on something, instead of adding light to it, we're going to subtract darkness. So a fully lit character would look like the normal sprite. But I think in some cases maybe overshooting a bit could be good, but it's the issue of like it leads to glare and shit on the character. And also if you have like colored light, you might want to change that somewhat, but I think you can solve that by just subtracting the darkness in a different way, where you don't like subtract all of the red or whatever. Was listening in the car but just got home. Oh, Charles. Now the thing is, I don't know what's actually happening in the lightcasts section here. So I don't think just saying like I don't actually know what's gonna happen if I play right now. So maybe we should do that after the shader finishes compiling. There it is. Right now, shadows don't work at all. And that's because shadows was a different thing. Like, I don't know why, but it was. Maybe I'll regret removing it, but I don't think so. The way this should work... Actually, I think I kind of know what the thing... What was happening. Because you can see there are no shadows indoors or outdoors right now. Okay. So what was happening was that Lightcast ray traces towards light sources. But the sun, I was treating the sun as a separate thing. So instead of adding the sun as a light source, I instead had an entire separate function called Shadowcast that ray traced towards the sun. So I think in order to solve this, we should just need to add the sun as a light source. But then the question is the light source update done? I think I was close to finishing it, if it isn't done. But the issue is that all light sources are objects, basically. So that would mean, in order to bake the sun into the standard raycasting system, I would need to make the sun be a game object. Does that make sense? Should I be doing that? I mean, I guess it wouldn't matter that much. Because here, we have like sun distance, sun origin, sun current position, all kinds of stuff. And the sun is handled through this. Sun distance. Here, time enabled. Here we're doing a bunch of stuff with the sun. So all I would need to do is create a sun object, and then instead of setting like sun position here, we just set the object's position, and then we just treat it like a normal game object, and it should like handle itself more or less. And then every single area, every single light area that contains a tile should be set to contain the sun. Kind of. Jesus Christ. It's either that or like writing in a bunch of extra special things here. Because we already have daylight and like we already had the sun. But I really, really, really dislike this implementation of having the shadows here, like in this one thing here. Let's see what's happening here. Shadow current ray position. Shadow area index. And now we have ray direction. Here it's sun position. Yeah, it's exactly what I thought. The shadow cast is using the sun position, while the light cast is using light source objects. which means in the object database, we basically need to add an NPC called the sun. Entities backgrounds. Universal background. What was that? Objects, effects. Alright. It's this simple. In objects, let's make sun. This is the sun. Sun. I would like the sun to be the first object. Data module. Animation module. Now that we don't need. Holy shit. Combat module. Don't think we need a combat module for the sun. Hopefully. Data. So we need to make a data module for the sun. 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 Icon. Sprite. Let's see. I don't know if it can be null. I think it can be null. These are data paths for Right, portrait, whatever. Object type. Persistent, I believe. Size, yep, a size of 1 is fine. Movement speed is 0. Is light collider. False. Light source type. I think it should be static, but it could be either. I don't know if it matters. But I think the sun should be static. Because we won't have like a time progression system. I would love to make an RPG with time that progresses. That's something I've wanted to do for a long time. But it's a retarded idea. Like having time that progresses and it like pushes the story forward. But it opens up too many fail states. That it becomes like super niche and annoying. But I think it's really cool. But it's almost impossible to do right, unless it's just like a procedural adventure game. I just thought it was really cool in Lightning Returns. Light color. The sun should just be white. Light size. The sun has infinite light size. So I don't know what to put it as, one. We'll have to handle that in some other manner. Light collider. False. Shadow collider. False. Blend with ambient light. It is the ambient light. Light masks. No light mask. Blend mode normal. Opacity 1. Object render direction flat. It doesn't matter. Sorting layer. Combat background. I don't know what. Just object. I tried Lightning Returns again a while back. Didn't have the patience. The game is ass. But for me, the game is ass because of the time stop mechanic, not because of the time mechanic. It's the time stop mechanic that ruins the game. Because it has like this time mechanic where you have to, like, I understand that you won't be able to play the game because you're a completionist autist. And it means you're going to miss stuff. Like, you're just gonna... but I like that part of it. That's why I like it. But the issue is that because you can stop time, all it really does is it just forces you to sprint between every single random encounter or every encounter that you can find, so you can charge up your time stop gauge so that you can stop time, so you can do everything. So it's literally just a normal game that just forces you to do every single encounter you see always. And it's just ass. It's just retarded. It doesn't make sense. Vision state. No, we don't. We have no vision from the sun. But I really liked the concept, and I thought it felt cool. Like I actually thought it felt good before they gave you time stop in the game. I liked it. It was like it was one of the first JRPGs I had played like ever where I was like, this is actually doing something different and it's actually interesting. And then it just cocked it up. So I never finished it. I just got tired of it. Because it just turned itself into a normal game. Alright, so now, basically, we have new level. It's getting... new level will always get called. So on the new level call, we need to init a level. What is that doing? It's clearing rooms, buildings, objects. Compute tile buffer. Creating a new object list. Then it runs init shader. Then here, what we need to do here is we need to create the sun. How do you do that? I don't remember. I spent so much time learning programming, thought I'd understand something here. Well, I thought wrong. Yeah, guess what? It's because you went with fucking Godot instead of Unity like I told you to. So yeah, you won't understand anything here. This is a different programming language and engine. And it goes both ways, because I've been looking at you doing stuff, and I see you're like, oh, I don't know exactly, I fucked something up, something isn't working here, I'm not really sure. And I look at it, and I'm like, this is Godot, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening here. It's some bullshit. It's not that, it's that I don't know your project, so I don't understand the real point of a given variable. Of course. Yes, that's always true. But it is also true that Unity and Godot are not the same engine. But yeah, how the fuck do I create an object? I don't know. All I needed was global variables that solved 90% of my problems. Suppose so. Those exist. This is in controller. Do I need to finally get rid of this? Ooh. I don't want to do that, but maybe I should. Ooh. Basically, the way this is handled currently is that I have 3 scripts here. I have a main controller, I have a level editor, and I have a controller. The controller is a mono behavior, and it handles a bunch of things. Like, it's 4K lines long. It handles a bunch of background stuff. And then the level editor handles the level editor. But it uses a bunch of those things there. And then I have the main controller, which is where the game is handled, right? And it has every single game-related method. This is where all of my objects really are stored, and everything is just handled in the main controller. Now, the issue is that the reason it is like this is that in the level editor, I want to have a separate, like, game, kind of, where there's supposed to be another window in the level editor that contains, like, a separate matrix, like a tile matrix for. Well, yeah, it's supposed to contain a separate tile matrix, and in that area, you're supposed to be able to build. What is the word? It's not a preset. It's a prefab. So you're supposed to be able to create, like, a house prefab, for example, and then save that. And that meant that that little window needed to be able to render the game, right? And that's why I separated it like this. But then I started changing my approach to things. So now it's like, it wouldn't necessarily need to be like that. I can just run the shader there instead, and just like plug in a different matrix before we do that, and then just run the rendering shader. So it's like, it wasn't needed anymore, but it was already, like, implemented that way. And now the sucky part is that if I do go about this, you know what's gonna happen? Every single variable from controller will get reset in Unity, because I'm moving them over from controller to main controller. So all of this that actually has settings in the inspector will get reset. Thankfully, I don't think it's that much. And if we just copy all the settings, then it'll be fast to fill in again. But it's still shit and annoying. And also, it is going to make my main controller script be like... $12,000 lines long or something, or 14,000. Which doesn't really matter, but it makes it clunky. But I can just separate each section out a bit. This isn't a real error, is it? Oh, it is. Database keys objects does not contain a definition for sun. Oh, I didn't save that. I guess. Now it does. So, what we should do then is... should push to git. Pre-merging controller and level editor into main controller. That sounds like a good idea to me. Commit all and push. Successfully pushed to origin. So, basically, it's this script here. System controller. Here's the main controller. But then we also have... No, there's only controller, which means that the entire main controller script might get fucked. So if I copy component and I paste it into Notepad, what are we getting? Nothing. Let's see, how can we solve this? Copying, component doesn't work. Can I read all of the... I think I kind of know how to do this. You just need to go and open the meta file. But I'm gonna see anyway. Set values anywhere else. Do I just open the meta file? Yeah, I'm 99% sure I actually know how to do this. So, main controller, go in Explorer. And then here we have a main controller cs.meta. Oh, nope. Was not that easy. Copy component as JSON. That didn't work. I mean, I felt like that should be what it does, so... No, it just copies... It doesn't copy anything. I just have sun in my clipboard. That's what's weird. So you can open the scene. like that. What if we do this? And then we say, and here. Is this it? Yes, this is it. Here we have the settings. This is the idea. You have to manually convert to JSON using a C# function? No. Basically, in Unity, everything in here is really just handled as a JSON file. And JSON is just plain text, really. It's just like a way of formatting plain text. So right now, what I did here was I found the main controller here. And the main controller is like referenced everywhere. And the reason for that is because everything is handled by the main controller. At least I think that's why the main controller is listed everywhere. But the main controller it handles everything. Everything goes through the main controller. Every object is listed in the main controller. Every object has access to the main controller so that it can access other objects, right? Like, that's how it works. You just have one centralized script that handles everything. And so since I found it here, it keeps repeating the same file ID the whole time. And if you then look up here, every section here starts with this little dash dash whatever, and then an @ which is a reference, and then it has a number. So I just because if I just search this, it's going to keep finding the file ID everywhere. But if I add the @ it only exists in one place. So that means that this is the settings for the main controller script here. And as you can see, it just stores everything as plain text. Screen size X 1920, Y 1080. These are my test variables. Tile size, values, map size, whatever. Like, it's just all here. So all I need to do with this, really, is just copy it, and then we go through it all manually in like the most horrific way possible. Just do that. And it goes up to there. Now what about normal controller? Is that like a controller? It's the same file ID there. controller and main controller. And here we have editor controller. So that one we should also probably... probably copy. But isn't it called, like, level editor? Don't know what editor controller is. Yeah, it was the same. It was the same value. Level editor. It's called level editor, though. Why is that not? No, there. Oh, I was in the wrong. I was in the little thing there. There, so this is the level editor. But this is not that simple necessarily, because let's see, this is the editor controller, and there are a bunch of accessors like this, like editor controller. This is the level editor. Static light, the source list. But the actual, like, most of the features in the level editor that I wanted to have, like, separate actually don't work. Like, I never finished doing that. So it shouldn't be a big deal. As you can see, most of this is empty. It's got, like, the editor canvas, prefab editor camera. Yeah, that one doesn't even work. Here we have a bunch of buttons and shit. This is a little trickier. This I think I need to screenshot. Here as well. Probably easier to just do this instantly from the get-go. Oh, wait, hold on. Hooked up. I think it'll be easier if we just... God damn it. We just include a screenshot of the whole thing. Something like that. Light flicker offset. First blood. Music source container. Music in the Fear test track. All right. I think this is going to suck gigantic titties, basically. So this is what we do. We just do this. Hello, Joho. How's it going? And then we pop over here. And then at the bottom, can we just make a region called controller end region? Then we pop controller here for the time being. Hello, Katsevek. Managed to catch you live. Figured I'd throw you on TV while I work. Sounds good. You work from home? And then main controller needs to be a main... No, it needs to be a... What the fuck is it called? A mono behavior. Mono behavior. And then we need to go to level editor. Office TV, fair enough. Then we grab this. We go back to main controller. Then we create a new region called level editor end region. And in there, we pop this in. Then we go in here. Let's see. What is different between these using calls? And here. Google flat buffers. Now, what are the errors? Yeah, that's going to be the worst part. The fact that there are multiple starts. But it's actually really easy to handle. Because we then go to region controller. Then here there's a start. Here. And all we have to do is just remove it. And then go back up to start here. Which does not need to be an override anymore, it's just a void. And then here we have a region main controller. Then we just go above that. We say region controller and region. And we paste that in there. And here we have... There's a lot of ambiguity between main controller resolution changed and main controller resolution changed. I think that's going to be a lot of the issues, though I don't really understand. Get mouse tile position. Well, why is this overriding? This is the virtual get mouse tile position, just doesn't return anything. So it just shouldn't really exist. So this isn't an override. This is gonna take forever. Focused controller. This is also bad. Set structure metadata to selection. Okay. So what are the errors up here then? Resolution changed. Ambiguity. Base start. Control equals this. We're already doing that. I imagine. Maybe, maybe not. Ambiguity between control. Where does it say region controller? Oh, maybe it's in the region level editor. Yeah, that's where control is. Int poop. Editor window, active window. That might be a problem. What if we change that to active editor window? World container. Yeah, that's old. Resolution changed. Then we go up. We go to start. Then we go to the bottom and we say region level editor and region. We pop that in here. Load tileset types. Now the thing here is that the level editor is going to have like a clause that says, you know, if you launch with these you know, this like launch option, then the level editor runs, otherwise it doesn't exist. Level editor.editor brush size should now just exist here. Pretty much everything that says level editor dot. What do you mean scale factor doesn't exist? Oh, editor canvas. Where am I right now? At the top. Why is there an error here? What's that? Focus controller equals main controller. Editor pencil. All of these things take a level editor. The tools need to be changed to take a main controller instead. Let's see, like, this is gonna be... quite a lot of work. Unfortunately. But it's something that... it's been coming. Editor tools. Rename this to main controller. Virtual void. Main controller. Main controller. Then we're here. This is a main controller. This should be called main controller. Main controller equals focused controller. And here we have two get mouse tile positions. Should not be an override. So it should not be this one. But here we're checking level editor for tools, but that's now currently just in here. I do think it could be good to make the level editor be a class that we create. I think that would be so much neater than this, because then you could just have it in like one... you could have it in another script instead of it all being baked in here. And that way, to not have the level editor, all you have to do is just say that we don't create the class. But I think we should figure all of this out first. Or maybe not. I wonder if we should undo everything here. And then just rework level editor into just a class that looks like this. I think that's probably the best idea. – However, doing that basically means undoing everything I just did here. Which means we should just roll back with git. Which I actually barely know how to do. View branch history. Remerge. Think you just check out? Is that how it works? Does anyone know how git works? I think you just check out. Or do I click revert? I don't know. Using git in with Unity and Visual Studio. I've heard how useful git is, but I haven't bothered looking into it. Git basically makes you want to kill yourself. But it is useful. Until it like breaks everything and ruins your project. It's basically a way to back up your project using like snapshots of your progress, so that if you want to go back like 2 versions or something, it's very easy to do that. But the issue is that Git is made by like Linux nerds. I think it's literally made by Linus Torvalds, right? And it doesn't make any sense. Like, from as a logical, normal human being, it doesn't make sense. Like, you have to Google every single thing, because it just does some bullshit, and none of the functions do what you expect them to do. Git revert actually creates a new commit. Yeah, see, like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I want to revert to this version. So you revert, and it doesn't revert. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just want to go back here and just get rid of everything I just did. I think you just check out. Linus isn't a normal human being, lol. Yeah, no. And it's the exact same feeling as trying to use Linux or GIMP instead of Photoshop, or, you know, using Blender. It's like you literally cannot use the program out of the box because nothing actually works the way you would expect it to work. I think GIMP is probably like the program that makes the most sense, but it's still like, oh my god. Like every single tool, every single thing that you do in it is like, oh my god, it just doesn't do what you expect it to. It's like you hop into a car. Like, I've been binge watching a lot of Top Gear. And in one episode, they were driving French cars. And every single fucking thing in the car was just different for no reason, right? Like, it's like, oh, instead of having like a gearbox on the right or wherever on the left or whatever, in, you know, if you're British or whatever, just a gearbox there in the middle. It's like, no, you have like a handle on the left side by the window that you have to like do shit with, and it's like that's what doing anything with Git feels like. It does not make any sense. All right, let me see. How do I revert the state of the project back to a previous commit, the most recent one, and simply drop all of the changes done after that point. Do I check out or do I use the revert function? Oh my god! For what you're describing, completely discarding all changes and returning to the last commit, you want hard reset, not checkout or revert. Git reset -- hard head. Here's why the other options aren't what you want. Git revert creates a new commit that undoes a previous one. It's for undoing committed changes while preserving history, not for discarding uncommitted work. Then why is it called revert? Fuck you! Git checkout file reverts individual files, but you'd have to do it file by file. Git reset hardhead is the one command that says throw away everything, staged, unstaged, modified, and put me exactly at the last commit. That's your case. Does that sound right, Joe? Oh. I hate Git so much, dude. It's so bad. If you also have untracked files, new files not yet added to Git, hard reset alone won't remove those. You'd also run git clean fd. That deletes untracked files. I don't think we have any new files. I think so. Solid. I've only used Git a handful of times, just trying to share ideas. Fair enough. I just hate Git so much. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like this is like the most basic thing, right? Like I want to go back here, but it's like I understand why, because it's the entire point is to like not break your history. So if you would want to revert like back here, you wouldn't want changes to like break what the changes you did up here. So often you're not really supposed to work the way I do with Git, I think. Because what I'm doing is I'm just pushing to main all the time. You're supposed to have like a separate branch where you're working on something, and then when that works, you then push it to main, and then you just like merge them. That way, you can handle things better. But it doesn't really make sense for me. I feel like I would rather just have it like this, where it's just like a long history. All right. So where's the terminal? View terminal. You can do it. Git reset delete changes, but yeah, so we run git Reset hard head. I hate Git. It failed. The file has unsaved changes. Oh, fuck. Unlink of file library artifact DB failed. Should I try again? Okay. Should I try again? No. Unlink of file library transaction failed. Should I try again? No. Oh my god, what is happening? Could not reset index file to revision head. Fatal. Oh, why? It doesn't even work, bro. Okay, so what's happened now? I don't even know. Did we do anything? Updating files 21. I had a bunch of unsaved files here. Is that it? Is that what the issue is? Okay, it's because Unity is running. Makes sense. Okay, now that worked. Makes sense. I love jumping back in after 2 months and doing the absolute worst things that I've dreaded for like a year. Oh my god. Oh, this is so ass. Okay, so I've got this back now. So basically we redo this. Controller should still be moved into main controller. So I'm gonna put that at the bottom again. Region, controller, and region. Right? Then we go up. Find region controller. Right? And then let's see. Start needs to be updated. Region, controller, and region. This is no longer an override. There's an error here somewhere. There. You no longer need a base start. A lot fewer errors this time. This is an override, get mouse position. This is the virtual, get rid of that. Check wall slice. So this now takes controller. Which it shouldn't. Open level tile data vector. So the issue then is this, I believe. Perhaps. Check wall slice. Set structure bounds. This will need some more work later because these will need to take a matrix. More or less. I actually don't know entirely. I might not bother because the idea, right, was to be able to make prefabs for buildings and stuff. But I might not actually needed to do that because at the time when I was developing this, we were still kind of looking at the game, you know, with a lot of explorations and stuff in mind. But the scope has shrunk a lot since then. And now it's a lot more narrative driven with, you know, smaller areas and only like the occasional area where you can go around doing more exploring and stuff. So I might not actually like need to make prefabs at all. Because I might not need to make a bunch of repeated buildings. And even so, a simple copy-paste might suffice. I think it would still be a good function to have, though. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff here is very old. So a lot of it could be done better. But it's whatever right now. Because this, for example, here we're taking, or it used to take a controller, and then it would go through all of the roofs in that controller. So what we really should be doing is feeding in what it needs. You know, like it should be fed in the rooms. And the tile matrix that they belong in. That way it's like not tied to a controller, it's just a function. Like that's how you should be programming. But it hasn't really mattered. It's fine until it doesn't matter until it matters. Basically, they're just running functions now in the main controller itself, which in 99% of cases is fine. It's just that if I want to have a separate like level editor, prefab editor, then it would have to be changed. That's really all. Okay, so there's an error here. Line 11,200. Here's another one. Room checker. Init tile array. Controller. Oh. There. The annoying part about having the projects or the script to be this large is that it just becomes harder to find where the error is. Otherwise, I don't think it really matters that much that your file is big. It has a lot of lines. That controller. Anything that takes controller should no longer do that. And that's that. All right. No more errors in main controller. Then what I would like to do is I would like to have a public level editor called level editor. And then we can have a boolean called public bool enable level editor equals true. I wish set it to false by default. And then on start, I want the level editor to say if enable level editor, then level editor equals new level editor. Oh, we have two level editor. Reference. There. And so level editor should not inherit from controller. And this is where things are gonna get shitty, I think. Because instead of inheriting from level controller, or from controller, we now have to rework this so that it accesses. It doesn't have a constructor. Yeah, we need to give it a constructor. Public level editor main controller. I'm just gonna call it MC. I don't know why I type it out like that all the time. It's so ass. And then we need to say controller. Do we not have like a controller? There's a level editor control. No, it's because this. But yeah, basically public main controller MC. This.mc equals MC. Then we just need to fix 1,000 billion errors. Start should be completely replaced by the constructor. I believe. Now, I've read that you shouldn't have a bunch of complicated things in the constructor, but I honestly don't know why. So this should be irrelevant. Main controller, MC, shaders, set float, zoom level. I don't think zoom level should matter here. Prefab can, yeah. This is for the entire prefab system, which was handled in controller. Render order list. See, all of these things... actually kind of matter. Which kind of sucks a little bit. Because if you look at this, right? This is meant to be for like a prefab editor. And it has everything that the original renderer has. It has zoom levels. It has render order list. It's got a list of rooms and buildings. Vertex mod list. It's got a tile matrix. Tile count. It's got everything that the base game has to render. And that makes me think, should I turn that into a class? Right? Should I turn the tile matrix into a class that contains everything that the world would need? All the world data is contained in a class. Does that make sense? Because I think a struct would be bad, but like having a class that's like a world class, and then that class contains rooms, buildings, the tile matrix, contains all the lights and everything for that world. Because then I could have the same thing in the editor, where I could actually have light sources inside of like a prefab editor in the editor. And I'm also like thinking ahead a bit. I do that too. I think I had a little too much, where I'm thinking like, oh, what if we're gonna make another game in this engine that will like need more tools and stuff? It would be good to have that, and then it takes like 3 months to make. Which is a bad thing. But I do think it's better, because what I'm trying to do now really is I'm trying to create, like I said, it's a separate like matrix that contains like, it's kind of like a separate world, right? It's a separate matrix that contains its own light sources and stuff, so that it can cast shadows inside of itself. And then I'm gonna just put the characters in there, and that's where combat is gonna play out. And that matrix is going to be like, the way it works is you render everything in the matrix from back to front on just like a quad, just a plane, right? So you just render the plane, or the original matrix, and then when that's done, you then, on top of what you've already rendered, you rendered this second matrix, which is where all of the combat is taking place. And that way, because it's rendered last, it just is placed on top of what you've already rendered. It's that simple. And this mechanic is really the exact same thing as the prefab editor would be. So if I make that, then I have basically created the prefab editor, except that it'll need like extra coding for like the tools to make sense. So I do think we should make a matrix class. Now the issue with that is that it's going to suck balls, but I feel like stuff like that usually goes pretty fast as long as you just start doing it. I don't want to start doing it. I'll be right back. Oh. Factoring stuff out is the most fun part. I mean, I hate factoring stuff out because I have to do it, but once it's done, it feels really good, yeah. No, it does. It does. It feels great. Feels like you lost weight. Instantaneously. It's the doing it part that sucks. I don't like doing things. Things should just be done. Okay, so basically what we should do is we should create a new class. We should call it, I don't really know how I feel about calling everything an LOT something, but I feel like it's almost for the best. Because that's just Legends of Terrestria, right? Because if you don't do that, I feel like you run into conflicts with Unity. Just realized I need a way to save the game. There's no simple way to go about doing it. It's not that hard to actually save the game. It is a little bit of work, but it's not really that bad. You just need to create like a certain, like, you just need to save the most pertinent variables that you need. Like for you, that might be, it depends on like where you want the save to be possible. Like if you want to be able to save anywhere, then yeah, you'll need to save like your character's position and stuff like that, and like exact values. But it's not really that much. Like you save the position, you save how many calories do you have right now? You're gonna save, you know, whatever. So at the end of the day, it's usually like it's probably just gonna be like 10 or 20 things you need to save. But then you need to actually learn how to like write it to a JSON and format that. And yeah. But it's not really that hard. Usually people think of it as like too big, or like they overcomplicate it. When in fact you should save as little as possible. Let's call it a world container. Could wrap your classes in a Terrestria namespace. That way, then you don't need to worry about what you call them. I don't even know how to do that. So you just do like namespace. I haven't named my engine. I kind of want to name it like Robin's engine. And then we license it out to people. And they, oh, what does this game run? Oh, it running Robin's engine. Seems I can make a dictionary, but I'm gonna have to list them all out. I mean, figure out what they are. Or it's not enough to just have the position and variables, like it needs the info for the nodes also, I think. Well, now we're delving into Godot shit, so I don't really know. But basically, again, it depends on what you want to save. Like, let's say your game has a game loop that's like, you go out and then you just play like a game of running around the block, and then you get home to your mommy, and that's where you can save. That simplifies everything. Like, that would be so easy to do. But if you want to be able to like save on the fly in the middle of a run, then yeah, you would need to be able to save, like, there's a dog on the screen right now. He's here and he's doing this, right? more or less. And the way you really do that usually is that you don't need to worry about like dictionaries and shit. Like that's not really part of the issue. Basically the way I would do it is like if you're gonna have a bunch of, if you're gonna save it in the middle of the run, which I would just say don't do that. Like just save it, like just create like a different, yeah, I like, it's like, what's, how long is a game session gonna be, right? Is it really worth trying to save in the middle of a run for like actually, or should you save when you finish a run? Because that way you don't have to bother with like all of these other variables. Like it's, you just save how much, like you literally just save the stats. And like, did you buy an Xbox or whatever? But if you really want to have like a save state, there are ways to do it that are easy, or at least in Unity there are, that are easy but dog shit. Like you can literally dump the entire scene state, and then you basically like load that as a scene. That's like the worst way to do it, but it's the easiest way to do it. But I don't know if you can do that in Godot. Too long, I realized. If this guy's gonna run all the way to the moon, it's just a long time consuming grind like any other incremental. Okay, so it's just gonna be like forever. You're just gonna play forever. Okay, it's not like a session or anything like that. Yeah, the way I would handle stuff like that is you need to have a main controller script that like handles all of your objects and like what's going on in the game, right? So that one script, I don't know if it's like a node or whatever the fuck in Godot, but like that main controller script, just call it a controller, let's call it a controller, will contain all of your objects, including your player object, so that it has access to everything. And all of your objects will be stored inside of an object list. And each object will also have an index for what it is. Like the player character could be index 0, while the dogs could be index 1, a car could be index 2, whatever. And then they all have universal things, like a position, for example. But for like, yeah, it really depends on what exactly they do otherwise, but they would need a position, and then you would just like save each object as just an index in a file. So it just saves the fact that there's an object as an entry, and then it says this has like object index 1, which means it's a dog. So then whenever you load that, it's just gonna say it's an object, its index is 1, so that means it's a dog. So we load a dog and put it in this position that's been saved. And then if the dog only has like one way of functioning, like running forwards or towards the player, then you just do that. Like you just maintain, or you just do what it's doing. The dog spawn timer can just start on load? No, you would have to save the dog, because like what if there's a dog that's like 2 inches in front of you? And then you then you just save and load, and now the dog despawns and like starts at the edge of the screen again. So that's gonna create an issue there. So you need to save the dog's position, but saving the object's position is fine, right? Like you just save the position, and then you load it, and then you just spawn in the object there, and then you just tell it to like continue its coding, which is just like running towards the player or whatever, and that's fine. Same thing with a car. You can just put it on a certain position and then just tell it, yeah, just continue doing what you were doing, and then it just continues, and then it should just work, right? So that's pretty much, for the most part, all you need. You just need to have your objects in a list so that you can easily track all of them, and then you just, when you save, you just go through them, and then you just read the ID of each object type, save that, and then you save their position as well, and then you just load it. But if you you don't care about that, then yeah, you don't need to save almost anything. You just save like your calories and shit, and then you just load that, and then whatever. But yeah. I'm just gonna call it LOT. And a world container is not a mono behavior. Oh. Now the question is, what the hell does a world container need to contain? It's gonna need to contain a whole load of things. This kind of sun distance and stuff like that, I think should be a part of that. Time of day, shadow time offset, current shadow strength, current time, target time, normalized time of day. I think pretty much all of this stuff should be in there. So let's say time. I think light stencils should probably not be in there. Because the light stencils, that should handle... That should be like a global kind of. Directional light stencils. I don't know about that one. Timeline preview, combat. I think it should have an object pool. Potentially. Effects. It should have effects in it. I think. It actually contains quite a lot. Pathfinding collision matrix. No. I feel like almost everything is down here. Region controller. Here. Map size. I'm just gonna grab everything and then just go through it and delete stuff instead. Map size is right. Tile size not right. Test stuff, go away. Test mode. Right depth map. Maybe. Light area map size. Static light source matrix. Dynamic light source matrix. We don't want resolutions, but we do want a light matrix in there. References, player cam. Textures. Output text. I think I don't want really to control anything like this. Like, I don't know if I want to store a bunch of references inside of the class. Could. We need that. Tile matrix, definitely. Rooms, buildings. Yeah, we need all of this. Combiner room list. I think we don't need that, but we can keep it there for now. Temp room list, room heights. Because these are things that are used to handle creating rooms and buildings and stuff. So that should really just exist in the main controller, I think. Editor history, action list. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, maybe, honestly. Because it's a little bit like, what if I have something out in the world, and I've been editing that, and then I start editing in the prefab editor? Could that just be stored in here, locally? I feel like that makes sense. Object list. Yeah. It's gonna be complicated. Transparency. What is this? This should not exist here. The world should not have its own buffers, but rather we need to write to the buffers that exist in the controller. So this should not exist. Let me just comment it out for now. Current delta time. These things should not exist here. Camera lock. Maybe each world should have a camera. I think that makes some sense. Selection. I don't know. These are colors. I don't know what these are for. Mouse origin. No. Type. This comes from system. Right, so then that creates a world. Then we need a constructor. And this is where things become complicated and annoying. I don't think the world should have really a reference to the main controller. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it does or not, but I think that the way this should be structured is that we should ever only like access it and read it and like fetch information. The world shouldn't read or write or do anything back. So it doesn't need to have a controller access. So the world container is gonna need some things. It's gonna need like a size. Size? I don't know what else really it's gonna need. In fact, I don't really know. Like, for example, if we load a map, should the way that's done be to delete the world container and create a new one? Or should it be updating the world container? I think it doesn't really matter a whole lot. I think just creating a new one is easier. Less error prone, probably. But if so, we have new level here. This is a function. I feel like new level should just exist in there. Right? This is where new level should be called. And that way, when we do this, this says new level size X, size Y, size Z. And for whatever reason, these are shorts, but that's due to like the load level. Working through that. And then it runs init level, which does all of this bullshit. And then it does init shader. Because here we're handling a bunch of buffer things. Compute tile data buffer equals new compute buffer. Yeah, I think maybe it does need to have access. Not sure. But yeah, this will need to be handled a bit differently. Basically, when I create a new level, it creates a new compute tile data buffer, which is then the size of the map. So we're basically saying to the GPU that, yeah, I'm creating a new buffer. It's the size of the map. It's going to contain tile data that's this big in each entry. And that's going to be different. Like, this might be a world container, but how this is handled is different for each world container, right? So every world will have a compute tile data array that contains compute tile data, but you would have to handle it outside. Because let's say we have like two worlds. One world is the main world, and the second world is the world that's just like a small outside world, like a pocket world, where we handle all the combat. And we just kind of like teleport the characters in there when we handle the combat. All of the tile data for the main world needs to be static. Like, it needs to always exist there on the GPU. So if I like handle this, if I don't change how I'm handling this and handle this outside of the world container, then we would flush all of the tiles every time we try to like write another world or handle another world. That's not good. So this needs to not handle the tile data buffer, but it needs to contain the compute tile data. Which means we can't just do like new world container. There needs to be a function called create new like main world, or create new prefab editor world, or create new combat arena world. And then those need to be handled slightly differently. As long as the constructor here works fine otherwise. Which I think they will. We just need to not do this. Compute shadow buffer count. The counts should maybe actually be in. Because some things are okay to flush. Like flushing out the shadow data, because that's done every frame anyway. So if I then have to flush out the shadow data after we have finished rendering the world so that we can render this other world with new shadow data, that's fine. And then we flush it again. There's no issue with that. I wish coffee helped me actually stay awake and focus instead of making me more unfocused, because I want more coffee. Oh, man. But it has been almost 3 hours, so losing focus I think is okay at this point. Let's stand. Oh. I need to crack out the vacuum cleaner. Holy shit. That's a lot of dust. And it's all gathered right around the branch outlet. Just the way you want it. Oh yeah. I think this camera is like broken. Almost. Let's see. No, it works. Alright. It just wouldn't stay where I flipped it to before. Alright. This is this is hard. This is tough. Let's see, what is tile size here? Tile size. It's a vector 2 int. Alright. Yeah, that should just be this. And here it says init shader. I think that shouldn't be called here at all. Because then here it says init shader. And that's just gonna set the shader to everything. And that's just gonna have to be called manually, like on load, depending on what we're doing. Open level. Basically what we need is public void create world or something like that. But it needs to be create what? Like create main world or something like that. And then we need to have create combat arena world. And then create editor, prefab editor world. Right? And then we need to have a public world container that is main world. And then we need a few more. Combat arena world and prefab editor world. Then in create main world, we say main world equals new world container. And that should take a size. I don't really know what we'll need here. I feel like this should be able to take like a level data or something. Because here, world container size. And we just pass in the size. World size. World container does not contain a constructor that takes one argument. You're fucking kidding me. Yeah, okay, so we need to do new LOT dot world container. There was a Unity world container that existed. Big surprise. Oh! Ay! But yeah, like that. And then we need to do init shader, basically. Init level. Init level runs here. So let's see. We run this here. This creates something based on the world size, world size, world size. And then I think we did these. Set data, compute tile data array. So then that's gonna be main world dot compute tile data array. I think. Yeah, except that here, that's a local. So we now need to have a compute tile data array. That's a global, I think. So that's gonna need to be a compute tile data. Think. Why is tile not working there? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Tile does not contain a constructor. Oh, it's because it's a flat buffer tile. Oh. Why is it using a flat buffer tile? We're not even using the flat buffers here. Oh, that's why. It's because the flat buffer is part of the LOT namespace. Hmm. Can you have a namespace within a namespace, or do you just call it like... Do you just do that? Oh, that's how you do it. I don't know if I can fix this manually, but we'll try. I could just update the flat buffers to be different, but I think it shouldn't be that much. Damn, there's a lot. This is for the save system. This is basically a different way to save data. That isn't JSON, because JSON is extremely ass. Like it works, but the second you start saving any like information in bulk, JSON is like unusable. Because all of the values get like giga inflated. Or all, yeah. Like I have a bunch of tiles, and every tile has a bunch of data attached to it, and then if I'm gonna save like a million tiles as just plain text, it just doesn't work. So I'm using something called flat buffers instead on Google, which is basically a way of WinRARing everything. Dude, it never ends. This is the main one. Any second now, someone's gonna complain about me not using search and replace. Oh, we got in the extremities as well. I fucked that up. I wonder if just renaming the namespace would have fixed all of this. But I think it wouldn't. No, that wouldn't have worked. It would have fucked up everything that isn't supposed to be part of this. But fixing that might have been easier. Probably would have been. Well, whatever. We're almost through. Well, hold the... What is this? LOT types. Yeah, this is flat buffers. Now, just hoping that there are no hidden issues here. Errors that aren't actually throwing any errors. Here, got some more. I think that's done. Let's save all. How goes the coding? I think it goes good. Kind of. Maybe. Hopefully. Special resource gauge. Editor. Lore data. Yeah, as long as it's in flat buffers, that's fine. Yeah, it's all in flat buffers here now. Except for helper functions, that doesn't have anything. And flat buffers types. And then here, world container. It's this one. Okay. Well, alright. That was an unfortunate detour. Let's close all of this garbage. And then let's open world container again. So now tile should point to the proper tile, which is this tile, yes. All right. Now, compute shadow buffer count. Was that really not part of those? Did I delete those? Because we have the buffers here, and then there was like counts. Did I delete the counts? But I don't know if I actually need to have the count in there. I think it should be handled here. So, create main world. Here, right? Compute tile data array. This needs to be public. That way we can access that there. And the count is based on the map size. Compute tile data. We don't need to keep the count. I could keep the count. That way we don't have to do get length on this, even though, or dot length. Even though I think dot length is like the same speed. Like get length sucks. But dot length on a one-dimensional array, I think, is the exact same as just having like a stored int. That's just how it works, I think. So we don't need to keep the count for a one-dimensional array there. As long as we just have the array there, we have that. But I'll be right back. There, the world needs to contain... It needs to contain all of its objects, all of its tiles, all of its shader data, or rather its buffer data. But the only thing I think it really needs to contain in terms of buffer data is light sources and objects. Because the tile data, that should be handled in the main controller. Or rather, we plan, even though we're making each world matrix be like instantiable, so you can have you can just make more of them, right? I only plan of having a static account. Like, there should only be 3, or rather there should only be 2 plus 3 if the level editor is enabled. The level editor, or the prefab editor, should also maybe be a block editor. Not sure. Because it's one of those things. I actually need to change the renderer a bit. Because right now we're just using tiles, but we actually need to be using cubes. Which is basically identical. It's just, it needs to... It needs like a minor change. I think it would be actually really easy, but it needs to be done eventually. But the hard part about doing cubes is that now you run into a problem of like, on the level editor point, like side of things, where, okay, so how do we actually create a cube for like making a house, for example? Like, how should that work? Because right now, the way I'm doing it is like you can select a series of tiles, and that like creates the pattern, and then you can just draw with that, and then you can just like manually tweak it if you want, like, oh, it's repeating too much here, let me use another one of the repeating tiles here, and whatever. But if it's a cube, you kind of have to do something like an Astrian house cube. And then that has like auto tiling built in, so that you can just like draw, and then that like automatically selects the correct tiles to place. Which would be good, you know? But it's still like... it's still different. And that's gonna be the real challenge with switching to cubes, because otherwise it's not a big deal. It's just gonna be like adding a check for if you're entering a voxel from the top or from the front. That's it. Otherwise it's gonna be exactly the same. Except that the cubes will need to have some depth data, which is gonna... it might suck ass, but we'll see. We will see. So what do these things do? Init level stencil. I think maybe this should exist outside. I'm not sure. Or maybe it should exist here, I'm not sure. I think this should be outside. Because then it should basically be... we create main world, then we're gonna do this. This is init level. I don't know what a global color array is for. Neither does it. But basically, it says init level stencil. So we are passing in size that takes the vector 3 int of the tile matrix. However, this should take a world. And then we can drop the size. That way here we can just say world container dot. Well, we can say vector 3 int size equals world container dot map size. And then here we have like the tile matrix. And there we'll have to read from world container dot tile matrix instead, because the tile matrix should not exist here at all. This should not exist. Now that's gonna throw some errors. Be sure about that. Because everything interacts with that. So, yeah. Then here we just pass in main world instead of this vector 3. And that's how all of these should work. So then we go back to init level stencil, we check again, using the world container. And then here this sets the global color array. Which is a little scary. I think maybe that should be contained in the world. And then this is creating the level stencil. Now, this level stencil should be the main level stencil. This height map should be the main height map. Think. Should this height map be stored? Maybe this should be stored inside of the world. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, level stencil, height map, and init detail texture should all exist in the world. I think. And they're all just using the tile matrix size, which is the same as map size. So as long as we just do that, that'll be fine. Same thing here. This is map size, map size, map size. This was init level. I'm a little unsure where we was doing that. Room check. Yeah, I think pretty much all of this. Setting buffers. Whatever. Set structure bounds. I think pretty much everything here should be inside of the world container. That way we can just fetch things from the world container. Kind of. We're getting very close to my brain being too fried for the first day back programming this. Oh, also we have the color thing there. There. Right. That big block. But I think this is the right direction. I just don't know if I should make the... Should I really make the sun an object? It's just... like, both solutions kind of blow. Because it's like... If I make the sun an object, that means that I'm now gonna have to put a sun in both the... In both worlds, right? Both worlds are gonna have to have a sun object. I think. So that both the combat arena world and the main world can have sun. Right? So we can cast shadows that way. That makes like that are the same shadows. And that's just kind of annoying because now I have to deal with multiple object types or multiple objects, and it's just kind of weird. But if I just handle the sun as just values, right? Then we can easily set those in the shader as like just a global, like this is where the sun is. But it also means that I have to write the ray casting in a way where every single section is like, if this is the first time, like if this is the first iteration, then we use the sun values, else we use these values. And I don't know if I want to do that either. Because there's a lot of fucking code in there. Here, like this is a for loop, right? No, it's not this for loop. It's basically here. Here it is. Here's the for loop. I might be able to change this, by the way. This is a little... We have quite a lot of for loops within each other here, which is a little... it's not ideal. And this is also not ideal. The fact that I have all of this in this for loop, and then there's like another for loop inside here. It's really bad, actually. But yeah, here we have loaded a light. So it would have to be here somewhere. This is the first one. So here we have to say for int LO equals 0, This is like light areas. I wonder if this can be rewritten. I think this might be based on how I was doing it before, which was a little clunky. Think so, actually. Because like I said before, it was kind of like this, right? Where if we have the light here, then I have to load in like these areas, because we only load in like a certain amount of areas. And that means we're like doing some weird ass things here. I think. I'm not sure exactly what's happening here. But I feel like it should be much simpler than this. It should just be, if we're checking this pixel here, then it should just check this area. It should just contain a couple of lights, like 1, 3, 7, 10, whatever. And then we just raycast against those lights, and that's it. So this whole thing, I'm not really sure. It's doing a lot of like tests and checks and minuses and pluses, which I think it shouldn't need to do at all. Yeah, so we'll continue working on the main controller. It's just, this is like quite a lot of work all at once. We're breaking out the tile matrix where the world is contained into its own class, where that data will be stored separately, and then everything else that like is related to things being in the world will be moved in there. All the objects will also move, like all the lights in there. And then whenever we're gonna read those things in the shader, we just access that world, and then we fetch the data from there, and then we just render that. And then when we've done finishing that, if the combat scene is active, then we access that world, and then we just fetch the data out of there. And that's it, pretty much. But there are like 40 functions in here to handle buildings and stuff, so it's gonna be a lot of stuff to move out and like restructure. But it is kind of needed because my main script is 12,000 lines now, so it is kind of bloated and tedious to deal with. And otherwise I have to like rewrite. It is necessary, otherwise I'm gonna have to rewrite like a lot of it. Or a specific, like just to duplicate it for like doing it on the combat arena world. But then we also need to figure out how to handle the shader, because the issue here is that I'll have to write... I'll still have to write a bunch of branching bullshit in here, I think. I think it's inevitable. the only thing I can really think of is that we could try breaking out the entire ray casting part of this. Because it starts here somewhere, right? Here. This whole for loop here. We could try to break this out into its own function. That way, we can redirect it by saying like, yeah, well, I want you to ray trace and I want you to do it on this buffer. Right? Because right now, we are always ray marching through the same thing. Like, I have a... Maybe it wouldn't be that bad. Because here it says raycast loop, right? This is the main thing. We go into raycast loop, and here we are checking the compute tile data, and it's fetching that, and then we're just doing stuff there. So if we just change this, the raycast loop, to have like an index, that way we could just say that, yeah, we're gonna read from, instead of it just saying tile data here, we're gonna say that if it's index 1 or index 0, then we'll read from compute tile data, which is the main tile matrix. Otherwise, we'll read from the combat tile matrix or the level editor tile matrix. I think that could kind of work. I think it's not going to be quite so simple. But that's basically what I need. It needs to be, like, redirectable. Yeah. But yeah, that's 4 hours, and my brain is cooked, so there's no use point pushing more. Yep, we'll get back to coding more from now on. It's been too long not doing it already. But it's time for a break, and I have some other things to do, so until next time, thanks for hanging. Have a good day. Bye-bye.